Chapter 9. Queen Inanna. Clear Springs, Florida, September 6th, 1998. Jake is speechless, and one afternoon, his grandparents have dropped multiple bombshells on him. The fact that his grandparents know of the existence of devils and Yazito alone is enough reason to give him pause. Learning that your grandmother was once possessed by one of these devils, and your grandfather was the assistant to a priest who was fighting against them, is overwhelming. "We won't be able to help you prove your innocence," Gerald says. Jake assumed this would be the case, but it's still crushing to hear it stated aloud. "The police won't believe a word of it. We can do whatever possible to help you disappear, but you'll likely never be able to live a normal life again." "Yeah, I kind of figured that one out a while ago. Yamura only brings death and destruction wherever he goes. I can't bring the people I care about into danger." "We won't give up on trying to help," Lydia consoles him. "Just because we can't do anything now doesn't mean that we might not be able to figure something out in time. The creatures that possess you and me are completely different, but there must exist some commonality that allows for them to take us as vessels. When we figure that out, we'll work on the proper exorcism ritual." Gerald leads Jake back into the house and allows for him to clean up in the shower and put on fresh clothing while Lydia washes his old clothing from his gym bag. It's just one setback after another. I should be used to the disappointment by now, Jake thinks, allowing the scalding hot water to hammer against his skin. The filth of his passenger will not wash away, no matter how hot the water gets. "I too am disappointed. There was a slight possibility that your grandparents could have taught us a valuable method of extracting Inanna from her vessel. If we had that information, there'd be no need to have an us. I would kick you out of my mind first thing. I would not continue the stupid feud between you and your sister. I'd be free of the plague of your existence." "Fool! We have a common enemy in my sister. If she were to confront you alone once I'm expelled, you would be destroyed without a chance of defending yourself. Without you hanging around, she'd have no reason to come after me. You do not know my sister. Inanna is scornful and unforgiving. If you exorcise me, she would hold you personally responsible for robbing her of her revenge. I could always gift wrap you in a rat or a gerbil or something and hand you over to her. Then she could do whatever the hell she wanted for revenge." Your humor misses its mark. I wasn't making a joke. You've done so many horrible things. I could never see you as a partner. We may have fought together a few times, but I can never trust you. Jake finishes his shower and wipes the fog away from the mirror. He is sickened by the dark rings beneath his eyes and how gaunt his face has become. "Thanks for stealing my youth, you prick," Jake mutters. Pulling on a fresh t-shirt and jeans, Jake exits the restroom to rejoin his grandparents and try to come up with his next course of action. Brad Henson tosses his head back, finishing his 12th can of beer. Belching loudly, the teen throws the garbage into the back of his truck as he drives the back roads from Rockland to Absinthe. Nervously, Fabian and Vaughn sit beside him, still thinking this to be a terrible idea. "Take the wheel," Brad says, squeezing his head and one arm through the middle cab window and grabbing a fresh beer from his cooler. Fabian awkwardly steers from the center seat until Brad is back into position. "Are you sure you should be driving?" Fabian asks. "You're pretty lit." Brad shoots him a dirty look, taking his eyes off the road. "When did you become such a massive vagina?" "I just don't think this is very safe. You're drunk and not thinking clearly. Really, man, I don't even know how you're still conscious." Brad grabs him by the back of his neck and slams his face into the dashboard. Keep mouthing off and we'll be stopping by your house next. Fabian leans back, pinching his nose to stop the bleeding. He regrets coming along. No amount of popularity can be worth the abuse anyone around Brad is subjected to. They sit the rest of the way in silence until rolling to a stop just down the road from the home of Ann Stewart. Brad turns up the radio loudly, imitating an epic drum solo with his hands on the steering wheel. Let's fucking do this, I'm pumped! Silver Fox jet en route to Arizona, somewhere over the Sonoran Desert. The surveillance of the warehouse where our primary target is holed up has also turned over a secondary hit, Treese says to Gator and Lucas. The men do not seem to be excited at the prospect of another unfriendly. It's a devil named Oscar. He's a low-ranking bastard, barely worth our time. We need to scrub him off the board before moving on to the Yazata. So why are we even bothering with this street-level thug when we have a rogue angel active? Gator asks. Because it's a really strange thing for them to be working together. Doesn't it make you uneasy just thinking about the potential problems this relationship causes? If this is true, we need confirmation from on the ground. Oscar must be taken alive if we're to find out if other devils in Yazata are in cahoots with each other. I can't make any promises, Gator mutters, fingering its knife. The jet lands in a narrow space between two cliff faces. The Silver Fox organization, with its bases all over the world, was founded in the aftermath of World War II. The race of military supremacy between the Germans and their enemies led to the uncovering of many secrets and ancient creatures that had long remained dormant. With their fascination with the occult and the paranormal, the Nazis sought out many alternative sources of potential strength. This activity led to the great awakening of the darkness slumbering across the world within the deepest shadows. An Irish intelligence officer for Britain's MI6, Connacht Fox, approached his superiors about the growing threat of dangerous, non-human entities awakening all over the globe. He and his fellows had begun encountering these strange beings with greater frequency during their missions, and many brave operatives were felled by the creatures that modern man refused to acknowledge existed at all. Fox's concerns were ignored, and one by one more of his fellow agents were killed by what officials declared as mere fantasy. Pooling the resources of his contacts across the world, a new organization was founded to combat what the bureaucracy refused to accept as reality. Currently headed by Leinster Fox, grandson of Connacht, the Silver Fox organization faces the darkest time in its history since being created. It was Leinster's father, Munster Fox, that recruited Gator into the organization. With nearly 1,200 field operatives spread across the world, their forces have been mounting serious casualties, recently due to the surge in supernatural activity. With only 2 full teams operational in the entire Western Hemisphere, things look grim. Creatures that not even the organization believed to exist have appeared, striking down entire field teams of experienced agents. Left to scramble for replacements wherever they can, the organization's newest recruits have proven too green for active missions, and far too many of them have fallen in assaults that should have been, for all intents and purposes, simple. Experienced former agents are difficult to convince back into service. Having served the organization in the late 70s after being recruited from the Navy SEALs, Russell Rigsby Sr., aka Gator, steps off the jet's walkway and back into his past. I killed a Wendigo in the desert once, Gator comments, stepping down onto the rocky platform serving as their landing pad. How much of what he says is bullshit? Kente asks, falling behind a few steps. I never figured that one out myself, Lucas says with a laugh. A fit man in his early 30s exits the bunker set deeply into the cliffs. His clothing is intentionally a well-pressed silver suit, and his hair is slicked back with gel. A single silver-colored streak of dyed hair runs down the center. Agent Gator, It's a pleasure to finally meet you in person. My father spoke highly of you, Leinster Fox says, greeting them off the jet. Gator nods with acknowledgement. Where is that bastard Munster anyways? He asks, shaking the man's hand as it is extended towards him. Unfortunately, my father fell in battle 4 years ago. The director of Silver Fox shows his strength, but the pain is obvious in his voice. Shit, Gator whispers. That sucks, man. I'm sorry. How did he go out, if you don't mind me asking? An African warlord. We raided his compound to recover a stolen religious artifact, said to contain divine radiance. My father died in the firefight. That puts things in perspective, Gator says, reflecting. No matter what crazy shit we face, bullets can still always punch our ticket. Leinster nods. I need to know right away that your head is in the game before we proceed. No offense, but I can't be wasting the precious time needed getting you up to speed if you're not fully committed. Hey, I may have some dust and cobwebs from being on the shelf for 18 years, but I promise you, it'll be like riding a bike, Gator replies, heading inside behind the director. I want to see the team that I'm supposed to be leading. If I have to sharpen my tools before battle, I need to start immediately. The director leads Gator through the maintenance hangar and past a dozen or so repurposed military vehicles, including Apache helicopters and fully armored jeeps. They reach a gym where several men are lifting weights, while 4 others are busy engaged in a competitive basketball game. One man stands apart from the others, beating up on a punching bag. Fall in and form up, Leinster shouts. The men immediately drop whatever they are doing and sprint to stand in a row before the director. Gator tilts his head back approvingly. He sizes up the men as they stand before him. As a leader, first impressions are crucial. The nearest man in the line is big. Gator judges that by his closely cropped hair, square jaw, and massive frame, that he is a former Marine. Beside the Marine is a taller, thinner black man. His body is still very muscular, but is lean from lots of aerobic activity. He has a shaven head and a short goatee that forms a circle with his mustache. The Marine was clean-shaven, a habit of ex-soldiers, so Gator guesses that the second man is not from any active service. Next to the goatee is a squirrely-looking man with longer hair and much less muscle. He is covered with tattoos up and down his arms and sleeves. The fourth man is as muscular as the Marine, but is about 14 shades darker brown. Beside him is what Gator would call a pretty boy. He has a lean surfer look with equally blonde hair and a blindingly bright smile full of piano-key teeth. The final man in line is older than Gator and has the look of a hardened and tempered warrior. His eyes meet Gator's, and without a word, the mutual respect of 2 samurai who have spilled gallons of enemy blood and seen enough death for numerous lifetimes is acknowledged. Gray Team, this is Agent Gator Rigsby. He's a veteran of over 250 combat missions. He's also very familiar with the supernatural, so no hand-holding will be necessary, Leinster says. Tattoo snickers, but is punched in the arm by Goatee. Introduce yourself so we can get on with this and move on to more important mission details. The Marine speaks first. Eric Royce, U.S. Marine Corps. 5 years of service with the organization. 113 successful combat missions, sir. Next is Goatee. Chris Means, LAPD SWAT. 5.5 years of service. 125 combat missions. Ellis Walker, U.S. Army, Special Forces. 3 years of active service, 81 successful missions, Tattoo says. Gator is surprised that he was a ranger. He looks more like an auto mechanic. But Gator decides he needs to be less judgmental and form his opinions through what the men are actually capable of. Ruben Vieira, U.S. Marine Corps, 3 years service, 100 successful missions, says the muscular black soldier. Gator is impressed at his work history, logging so many successful missions in such a short amount of time. Pretty Boy speaks up next. Cody Easton. I never had a job before this one. 12 successful missions. Where'd they recruit you from, kid? Gator asks, intrigued. A bar fight in Belgium. I kicked the asses of 2 of their operatives, and I guess I impressed someone. He laughs. Pretty Boy is the least experienced and most likely undisciplined. Gator thinks. I'll have to keep my eyes on him. The veteran speaks last, his voice that of a gruff smoker. Gregory Pierce, U.S. Army. 23 years of service. 476 successful missions. 1 with you, sir. We served together? Gator asks, surprised. 1981, Guatemala. Gator's eyes suddenly light up and he whistles loudly. You were in Guatemala? I'm sorry I didn't remember. That was one hell of a weekend. I'm surprised we remembered our own names afterward. Gator laughs. Good to see you've done well. Life expectancy around here isn't all that long. Pierce nods. I survived, but a lot of my comrades have not. I served on Red Team for 9 years. I only recently was transferred from them to the desert here. It was my boys that got off by this Halo turkey. I owe that asshole some serious payback. We'll get that chance, but we have to be smart. Gator pushes Kinte forward. Mingle. This is the final member of your squad. Get familiar with each other. In a few hours, these guys will be the only thing between you living and dying, Leinster adds. After spending about an hour chatting up his team, Gator leaves the gym to rejoin Treese, Lucas, and Leinster in the Combat Operations Center. What's our latest intel on the target? Gator asks. He's still in the state. We lost a new recruit in the process, but we were able to track him to a warehouse in Turtle Rock, Leinster says coldly. You used one of your newbies as bait? Gator's hand twitches near the handle of his blade. He contemplates whether he should bury the knife in Leinster's forehead and just go home. Someone is organized to take our pieces off the board. You think I wouldn't start putting our recruits under increased surveillance? And it was the Angel? Leinster groans. I prefer to call them Yazata. The romanticized term angel does this vicious creature too much justice. This thing is about as inhuman a monster as I've ever seen. It has no concern for human life. We are less than insects to this thing. It was the Yazata that took your man? Gator corrects himself. A thug working for the Devil Oscar took our recruit. Likely he was taken to be interrogated for information regarding our activities and whereabouts. The warehouse in Turtle Rock that we have our eyes on is where Oscar met with the Yazata. Devils and these Yazata are an alliance? The Devils are just former Yazata. It makes sense that there would still be corrupt members within their ranks. Gator scratches his goatee, thinking hard of their options. What have you come up with as counter-strategies effective against our target? Not much, Leinster shrugs. Lore on the Yazata is scarce. Apart from the few biblical references, a handful have shown up over the millennia in various underground historical texts. We know they have the ability of Shunkanido teleportation as part of their often duties as holy messengers. They're also very fast and have more power than any other being we've ever faced. Teleportation? Like ghosts? Shit. Gator does not look forward to facing a deadly opponent that can also teleport. Leinster nods, continuing. They have swords made of diamond, which are virtually indestructible, and golden armor that repels anything, save for those same diamond swords. Fuck. Gator breathes heavily with stress. Do you happen to have any of these diamond weapons? Did you think that we'd send you into battle with nothing more than good intentions? Leinster smiles. We may have not been prepared before, But now that we know what we're dealing with, this bastard's going to regret having run into our organization. He waves over one of his technicians. This is Mulder. He'll go over our toys with you. Mulder? Gator raises an eyebrow. Really? Hey, I'm just sticking with the fox motif, Mulder replies, grinning. Mulder is a small Asian man, no older than Gator's own sons. The veteran is pretty confident that he could fit him inside of a gym bag if he needed to. Diamond weapons, Gator says. What have you got for me? What don't we have? Mulder boasts, proud of his own team of technicians. Diamond-bladed knives, katanas. We even have some repurposed M4s to shoot diamond dust pellets. The force and the sharpness of the material could pierce even the best Yazatan armor. What about the teleportation? Have your guys come up with a way to shut that down? Not exactly, Mulder frowns. It's a supernatural ability that we still can't explain yet with our level of science. Physically, Shukanito shouldn't be able to exist according to physics. How so? Gator leans forward on the computer terminal, making Mulder nervous. Well, nothing should be able to move faster than the speed of light. Shukanito teleportation is like an instantaneous movement from any space to another, and I mean instantly. We have no idea of this ability's limitations because we still don't understand how the sheer act is possible. What about binding magic? Surely you have some adepts here that are capable of halting the Yazata's movement. There are some spells designed to hold spirits in place and prevent them from phasing out of our plane of existence. I'll put some guys to working on that immediately. Gator pats Mulder on the shoulder. Let us know the second that you have something. Make sure that each of my team is fully equipped with these diamond weapons. Hey, it's not like we have a diamond mine here in the basement. Our resources have limitations. I don't care what strings you have to pull or threats you have to give. Make it happen. Mulder drops down into his chair, defeated. Man, I'm glad he's on our side. That guy is downright scary. Brad Henson's Dodge 4x4 idles on the street across from the home of Ann Stewart. Beside the teen, fellow varsity players Fabian Parker and Vaughn Johnson sit. On the radio, a female artist sings about a cheating ex-boyfriend with the sharp country accent. The green glow from the radio's clock is the only illumination from the vehicle, with its engine killed. The cops have staked his house out for weeks, Fabian says. What makes you think you're going to find him here when they couldn't? Brad slowly turns the radio down to a minimal hum before speaking to his teammates. I never said that I think he'll be here. Brad looks over at the house, staring intensely. The mother never lifted a finger to stop her monster of a son. Fabian is shocked at the insinuation. His ma? Really, man? That doesn't seem right. I think you're taking this way too far. I'm taking this too far? Jake is the one who murdered classmates of ours, citizens of Rockland, who likely sat in the stands and cheered for us at home games. He's the monster, not me. Stay in the truck if you don't have the stones to help me fight his family's wrongs. Brad opens up his driver's side door and steps out onto the street. This whole family deserves whatever is coming to them for not putting an end to Jake years ago. He finishes, reaching into the bed of the truck and withdrawing a red container of gasoline and a bag filled with pre-soaked towels and rags. Hold on. What's with the gas? Fabian asks with concern as he exits the truck. I just thought we were going to ask her a few questions about Jake. Sometimes people need a little motivation to talk. Fabian tosses his hands up, backing away. I'm out. This is just too fucking much. You fucking pussy, Brad growls, dragging the jug towards the house. Vaughn slides out of the truck next and grabs a second 5-gallon jug of gasoline. If we're lucky, this will draw him out of hiding and the cops will nab him. If not, then his bitch mom will be so scared that she'll move out of town, and we'll be all that much better off, Brad says. Fabian notices a sparkle of glee in his friend's eyes, reminiscent of Jake himself when he is last seen by any of them at the party. And what'll happen if he finds out we torched his house and threatened his ma? They'll come looking for us, Fabian says, disagreeing completely with this plan. He doesn't want to be any part of arson and criminal intimidation. Smiling, Brad moves his shirt aside to reveal the handle of a small handgun tucked into his waistband. That murderous son of a bitch will finally face true justice. The teens circle the home, splashing gasoline along the side and wooden trim until both containers are empty. Brad staggers up to the porch and begins pounding on the door. Open up! Come out right now! Come out, you fucking bitch! Inanna walks over to the door, hearing the commotion outside. What does he want? She growls. Do you know him? Anne shakes her head, still trembling with fear. Go away, Inanna says through the door. Brad only becomes angrier, slapping the door louder. It seems like he will not take the hint. Brad, let's go. Come on. She's gonna call the cops, Fabian shouts several yards down the road, but still looking back. Man, fuck her. Let that bitch call the cops from hell. Brad pulls out a lighter and begins flipping the flint roller, trying to create a spark. You maniac, put that shit away! Fabian yells, running towards Brad. Yeah, man, this shit's gone too far, Vaughn adds. I didn't come here to kill anyone. Both of you shut the fuck up, Brad growls, reminding the others of the gun tucked into his waistband with a simple gesture. Stepping back, Brad finally manages to ignite one of the towels and tosses it onto the ground. The flammable liquid bursts into orange life, chasing around the home like a set of collapsing dominoes. In minutes, the flames begin to dance and lick at the wood and brick of the building. Brad and the others run back from the heat to the safety of the truck, filled with adrenaline and fear. Tiny glowing embers float up to the sky. The teenagers watch, unaware that the true owner of the home is trapped inside and unable to escape her fiery fate. The flames begin to swirl, forming a reddish-orange spiral, as if moving under the direction of an intelligent but unseen force. A feminine form emerges from the flame, extending her arm and instructing them to go forth like a spear. Vaughn shouts out in pain as the fiery spear pierces his chest and burns his internal organs to charcoal in seconds. Fed by dark magic, the flames grow much more hotter and more difficult to extinguish than their original form. Fabian turns to run as Vaughn's body crumbles away into an unrecognizable pile of ash. The zombie-like Leonidov takes a staggering step forward and swipes her arm to the side, causing the flames to lash out at the fleeing teenager. Fabian dodges the first pass, focusing all of his running skills from football to try and evade his attacker. A second failed pass, and Inanna's upper lip twitches with agitation, and she is forced to throw out her other arm and control the flames with both, doubling her power over them. Fabian dives to escape another pass, but the split second it takes for him to roll back up to his feet is just enough for Inanna to whip the flames back around in an arc down at him. He manages to hop sideways, losing his balance and stumbling as the flames explode into the asphalt beside him. Splinters of shattered rock fly up, stinging the teen's face. Fabian rolls, evading the next pass of the fire, but the small amount of time that it takes for him to roll back up to his feet is enough for the controlled magic to return. The flames wrap around Fabian's feet, burning his ankles and melting his sneakers to the asphalt. Trying to move and continue his escape, but unable to, he collapses to his face. Warmth fills the teen's mouth, and he hopes that he has only bitten his tongue or cheek during the fall, and nothing more serious. The pain in his ankle screams at him to get up, and he quickly unlaces his shoes and removes himself from their melted remains. No one leaves, Inanna whispers, her voice cold and inhuman. I am already in a hurry to discard this dying form, and I cannot allow you pitiful creatures to destroy the only worthy host I have remaining in the area to be found before this husk expires for good. Brad shakes off his fear in an indecision, finally reaching into his waistband and withdrawing the gun. His hand shakes as he raises the weapon and fixes his aim on Inanna. With the Sicari's attention focused on Fabian and her decayed body's senses diminished, Brad is able to squeeze off an unexpected first shot that goes wide and nearly strikes the other teenager as he's getting back up to his feet. Inanna turns, drawing her flames away from Fabian and back into a fiery spiral around her form. The light from the flames illuminates Lior's face for the first time, revealing her grotesque, decayed body. The skin is barely left and clinging barely to her bone. Her eyes seem far too large as the sockets seem to have grown, and her hairline is receded to becoming nearly bald. Her jaw protrudes more, and her teeth are more fang-like because of the receding upper lip. Her fingers are skeletal, and her coloration is a sickly gray. Brad's arm tenses, and his finger presses against the trigger. A loud crack cuts through the night, and the teen's arm recoils just as the bullet speeds out of the barrel. Inanna meets the bullet with her flames, consuming the deadly projectile with little effort, and carrying them on into Brad's still outstretched arms. Flames biting into his flesh. Brad screams out in white-hot agony. The gun and human tissue fuse together as they melt, and one becomes indistinguishable from the other. Inanna's claw-like hand closes around Brad's throat. She grins a near-toothless smile as the teen evacuates his bowels in terror, as he can do little more than whimper within her cold grasp. "You're a monster. Just like Jake," Brad cries. Had he known that his last words were about to be spoken, he would have chosen them more carefully. The name of the person he hated most in life would not have been his first choice. With a slight but more powerful turn, Inanna's wrist silences the cries of Bradley Joseph Henson forever. As the teen's body falls lifelessly to the pavement, all of his accomplishments are instantly rendered useless. When one is crossing the river Styx, the ferryman cares not whether you are a star athlete or a park bench hobo. Looking back, Inanna notices that the third teen has successfully managed his escape. She decides the status of her vessel is more urgent and allows Fabian to run in terror through the night. Walking back towards the house, the flames do not harm Inanna. Instead of burned flesh and pain, the fires distort around her form. A tunnel of safety forms, granting the Sicari free entry into the home once more. The fire has already begun to devastate the interior of the house. Anything flammable is ignited, and the air is thickened by smoke and noxious vapors. Surrounding her face with the magically manipulated element of wind, Inanna is able to protect her very human lungs from the deadly fumes. Her eyes glow, enhanced by a different spell to grant her visibility in the near-total darkness of the smoke and the contrasting blinding light of the flames. In the scope of her vision, she spots the remains of the chair and ropes used to bind Anne Stewart. Inanna's lip twitches with anger. This woman has proven to be a severe irritation. Without time and resources, she cannot perform another soul-binding ritual. Even now, the body of Lior Nadav is animated entirely by conjuring, as no spark of true life remains within the woman. Vessel-ready humans, such as that of her brother's vessel, and by speculative inference, Anne as well, require much less ritual to bind. Sure, going through all the motions and gaining a virginal relative to sacrifice would guarantee a near immortal existence. But even without it, it would be preferable to a repeat of the painful decay she has suffered within the body of Lior. "Damn those police," Inanna curses. Because of the interference of the detectives, she lost not only her carefully selective host's body, but the second of her 3 most trusted acolytes. Emil, Kara, and Santia each were devout and useful. Each shared a taste of her power and regarded her as a deity. Now, only Santia remains, the other 2 killed by unforeseen complications. I must shed this temporary form before the magic holding it together fails. Should Lior's body expire once and for all while Inanna remains trapped within, she will have no further means of escape. She too will die. Where are you? Inanna growls, stalking the inferno like a fiery reaper. The flames destroy all in their path, yet continue to warp around the resourceful sorceress. Inanna knows the woman's weak human lungs cannot survive inhaling these deadly levels of carbon monoxide. The smoke will kill her, and Inanna will be left with what? Going after Jake's grandmother? His aunts? One of his male relatives? She shudders and pushes her fears aside. I will find her, and she will not get off as easily as dying of smoke inhalation. She will become my new host, and I shall use her to kill my brother and her own son. Something highly flammable in the house ignites, and a small explosion shakes the small building. Portions of the roof begin to collapse, and the living room becomes blocked by fiery debris. With no other choice, Inanna travels deeper into the home in a desperate attempt to recover the likely unconscious Anne Stewart. A picture framed by hard plastic, painted gold, drops from the wall, melting with dramatic sizzling and popping. The picture itself fades to white before being consumed in finality by the fire. Inanna is oblivious to the symbolism as the image of Ian melts away first, followed by Anne, and lastly Jake's himself. The Sakari tramples the remnants of the picture and its frame underfoot as she proceeds through the home. The sound of glass crunches beneath her feet. Having traversed the entire home, Inanna curses loudly in frustration. The back door hangs wide open. Granted, flames pour out of the opening, making it a hazardous escape route, but not an impossible one. A primal scream roars from behind, and even Inanna is caught off guard enough to be unable to properly react. Anne lunges, one hand cradling a wet towel over her nose and mouth, while the other grasps a steak knife. Her senses dulled by the smoke and flame, Inanna still manages to shield her core from the attack, on instinct. The blade sinks easily through the sinewy, brown forearm of Lior. Like dry wood, debris, more like sawdust, falls from the injury rather than blood. Inanna backhands the woman and sends her crashing through a wall that is weakened by the flames. Anne coughs, trying to catch her breath, but instead sucks in only smoke. Stupid wretch, Inanna growls, tearing the knife free from her arm. Several bones snap and protrude, unnaturally free from the skin. She walks over to the suffering woman and lifts her up by her hair. Anne makes several painful noises, but no words. Still angered, Inanna flings her aside and through the nearest window outside. Anne lands in a flower bed, shards of glass biting into her flesh all over. She remains low on oxygen, and as such, the pain fails to fully blossom in her mind. She struggles to move, but all she can manage is a worm-like wriggling. Inanna emerges from the flames through the back door. The Sakari is irritated and desperate. Having attempted to heal her arm, she's discovered that the dead flesh of Lior's body is beyond the ability of restorative magic, as Lior's soul has already long since departed. If she does not take a new host immediately, she will be entombed in the rotting corpse and die. You will give me control of your body, Inanna hisses, her voice escaping as nothing more than a raspy whisper. Lior's lungs are no longer truly functional. The only air that is within them cycles through a motion that ends in her teeth. Magic is the only thing that keeps her body operating at all. Anne's vision is near total blackness. For a brief instant, she is able to focus upon a slender piece of broken glass, and wraps her fingers around it. Inanna steps on Anne's hand, shattering the glass and burying it deeply into her palm in numerous points. Relinquish control to me, and I shall have no need to cause you any further harm. The words "fuck off" come to Anne's mind, but her lips seem disconnected from the same portion of her brain. She may not have a clear idea of who or what this woman is, but she knows that she is not human, and that she's evil. Every threat that I have made, I will make good upon. I shall bring forth the screaming corpses of your relatives, and cast them at your feet. Everyone you have ever known and loved will slowly die in anguish. Anne winces. Tears of fright mixed with pain and anger begin to leak from her eyes. She clenches her teeth tightly, and in sheer defiance, tries to force herself upright. Inanna pushes Anne's face back into the dirt with her foot. Their deaths will solely be upon your head. Being stubborn now does favors for no one. If you do not give me control of your body, they will suffer unimaginable horrors. There is no alternative to this truth. Picturing her mother and father, Jake, her own sister Rebecca, and her children Dawn and Travis, Anne is filled with inexpressible grief. Her soul screams, curses at both Ian and Jake for leaving her alone. No one is left, and she is all alone to deal with this monster. Why should it be her responsibility to protect anyone? Was anyone around to protect her from her own suffering? Better to die now than to hold on to life and see how convicted her torturer is. She finds the ability to speak. The words emerge as a wet gurgle, but their effectiveness is powerful nonetheless. Fuck off! For her efforts, Anne receives a hard kick to the ribs that lifts her body off the ground. The sounds of bones snapping fill the air, followed by her hard landing and the painful woof that is driven from her lungs. I am done toying with you, human. If you will not freely give control into me, then I will break you until you beg for me to end your life. Inanna takes a step towards Anne, but stumbles, nearly falling. Having kicked the woman, the bloodless and decayed bones of Leora broken, and left her right foot a limp and useless appendage. Anne tries to smile, appreciating the almost comical humiliation of her torturer. The smile does not form, however. The muscles in her face, or perhaps the synapses in her brain itself, are damaged and unresponsive. I cannot drag this out any further, Inanna thinks, panic invading her thoughts. This dead flesh is becoming my coffin. If I do not soon escape, I shall never do so. I have tried coercion, threatening, even torture, yet I am unable to break this woman. Her strength would be potent if I were ever able to tame it. The Absinthe Volunteer Fire Department alarm sounds, loudly, echoing throughout the still night air. While most of the town prepares for bed, Jimmy Biden, Lincoln Reed, and Stephen Walsh hear the alarm as a call to action. As volunteer firefighters, the three men rush to the station and quickly throw on their protective gear before making sure that the water tank of their primary engine is filled and ready to go. The men turn the flashing lights and siren of their trucks on, and head as fast as they can to the source of the smoke cloud, billowing up from the southeastern side of the small town. Arriving at the home of Ann Stewart a mere 9 minutes after hearing the first siren, they reach an inferno that is unlike any they have ever before seen. The flames seem to move under intelligent direction, refusing to make the leap from the home to neighboring yards. On the street beside a large Ford pickup truck, 2 smaller fires still smolder. Approaching the truck, the men are both surprised and horrified to still see that the smoldering fires conceal the remains of 2 human bodies. Choking back vomit as the smell of charred flesh burns his nose, Reed dials 911 as Biden checks the property for a place to enter the home that is not completely engulfed by the strange flames. They know that they need to get inside and search for anyone left inside, but cannot without a way that is not blocked. Front's a no-go, Biden shouts. I'm going to try the back for another entrance. Reed nods, connecting with the dispatcher and informing her of the carnage. "This is Lincoln Reed with the absent volunteer fire department. We have a fire at the Stewart place that's out of control. There are 2 bodies out in the street that are burned up and too far gone to save. We're trying to get into the home to check for any survivors still inside, but having difficulty. You need to send a unit here pronto to handle the bodies, and pray that you don't find any more inside. We've already received a few calls about the fire and have a unit en route. I will tell the officer about the bodies. Put out the fires, but do not disturb the remains," Ruth says. Walsh has already extinguished the flames covering both Vaughn and Brad, and shakes his head with sadness as he stares down at the blackened remains. "They're both just kids," he says with sadness, judging the size of the bodies. "Couple of poor fucking teenagers." "Police are on their way," Reed explains, running back to the engine to grab the hose. The 2 of them fight valiantly against the flames, but for some reason they are stubborn to the water. Neither has ever before seen a house this resistant to being put out. The sounds of the fire station siren continues to sound. Inanna thinks it's likely a volunteer firefighter who has spotted the smoke or the flames on his own and will soon be rushing to the scene in a heroic attempt to save lives. This will prove to be an unwelcome interference as time is quickly running out for her to successfully gain control of Anne's body. Anne also hears the siren, but it does not change anything for her. She does not see the addition of 1 or 5 firefighters, for that matter, as a saving grace. This monstrous non-woman would not bat an eye to tear out their throats. At this point, she doesn't see any possibility of escape. If she can only stall and force the creature to expend more energy and waste more time killing the first responders, maybe she'll become too weak to carry out her other threats. Anne knows she should feel guilty about thinking these thoughts about these brave firefighters as nothing more than a stalling device, but she does not. Weighted against the lives of her family that has been threatened, she would give up any number of strangers to the demonic slaughterer. "Time is of the essence," Inanna hisses, lifting Anne up by her hair. She is amazed by how much strength the frail-looking creature possesses in its broken and zombified body. "I say one final time, give me control of that body." Anne reaches up with her bloody hand and strikes Inanna across the face with defiance. The blow is weak, but the very gesture itself is powerful. Inanna immediately drops her, shaking with furious anger. She calls up the symbols for fire and spirit, drawing the flames from the burning home into her palm. Shaking, she nearly directs all of the fire down into Anne, before gaining control of her emotions at the last moment. Inanna seems to calm herself, but her frustration remains astronomical. Anything more could again set her off, but she continues to remind herself that she does not have the luxury of time to find another vessel, should this one be destroyed. "If this stubbornness is genetic, my brother has truly had his hands full," Inanna says as an offhand comment aloud to herself. "Is there no way for us to come to an understanding? I require your body, and you require your life. If we become one, you would not die. You would live on as my other half. Think of the great power you would gain from our union. You would be regarded as a deity, a goddess. I intend to remake this world in my image, and it will be, through you, that all things will be made possible." "Never," Anne coughs, blood drooling from her cracked lips. Inanna's fury slips past her control for a moment, and she repeatedly kicks the woman again and again in the side, until she herself falls to the ground clumsily. Inanna hisses with rage, as Leora's leg finally snaps completely off, leaving the Sicarii with one stump and a broken ankle. Unable to stand, Inanna pulls herself towards Anne until she is able to grip her by the throat. Icy, cold nails dig into the woman's skin. The hot and foul breath of Leora's corpse turns Anne's stomach. The lifeless whites of her eyes pierce Anne's soul with terror. "There is no more time," Inanna screeches. "You will give me control right now." Anne reaches up, trying desperately to pry the dead fingers from her neck. Despite her appearance, Inanna's strength is much greater than Lior's ravaged body would ever suggest. Try as she might, Anne cannot extract herself from Inanna's deadly grip. The Sicari's hold tightens, slowly squeezing Anne's airways shut. "Continue to resist and you will die." Growing lightheaded, Anne's vision blurs, and a tremendous weight and pressure falls over her. She finds it increasingly hard to think. Inanna's grip is too tight. Anne knows that soon this will all be over. She will be dead. In death, Anne will have the comfort that her body will not be used to hurt the people she loves most. Inanna has already made it abundantly clear her intentions for Jake. If dying is what it will take to save her only son, Anne is more than willing to make a mother's sacrifice. At the moment where Anne stands on the edge of the precipice, Inanna is able to force some of her influence inside to fill the void of Anne's departing spirit. Feeling herself being pushed out like liquid being poured into an already full bottle, Anne's soul is torn by a critical decision. She could let it go and allow her pain to end, or she could fight back and try to prevent Inanna from worming her way in completely. Anne's soul turns back from the edge and rushes back to deny Inanna whatever victory she seeks to claim in her last moments. "Damn you!" Inanna coughs, Lior's eyes losing their spark of animation. The corpse drops to its face, fingers loosening from Anne's neck. The body remains rigid and motionless, as the element of life has faded from the union between Lior's dead flesh and Inanna's soul. Anne tries to find some relief, but the pain is too great. Every inch of her body is racked with agony. Brought to the verge of death, she feels as though she has not fully stepped down from the ledge. Her consciousness teeters, and she struggles to keep her eyes open. After several seemingly endless seconds, she cannot fight it any longer. "You have failed," a voice cuts through the darkness. Anne's eyes snap open, but she remains all alone. "You could not shut me out in time. I may not be complete, but I shall regain my strength in time." Anne's heart feels as though it has been crushed underneath the weight of an entire mountain. Against all of her efforts, Inanna has entered her body, and she will take it over. Your fiery determination and will shall make this union truly powerful, Inanna's spiritual avatar says, eyes glowing red in the darkness. "You and I shall be a pair like none other, and together we shall kill Ymura and his pathetic vessel." "Jake, I'm so sorry," Anne's soul cries as it grows weaker each moment as Inanna strengthens. "I tried. I swear that I tried as hard as I could to stop her." Inanna gains control of her new vessel, triumphant after all of her efforts. She vows that she will not make the same mistakes as she did with Brooke or Lior's bodies. She will not underestimate the powerful weapons of murder wielded by the human race. With her new form and her skill in combat and magic, she will finally have her revenge. Ymura will soon pay for his betrayal in her eyes. Victory has never before been this close to her fingertips, and Inanna can only smile triumphantly. Inanna opens her eyes, taking in the growing flames all around her. Glancing down, she observes just how battered and dirty her new host is. Pain fills her mind, and her first action is to perform Zendatu Helez. Broken ribs, torn muscles, fractured bones, all are slowly repaired by the healing spell's light. The remains of Lior Nadav collapse like a bundle of sticks. Dust that once comprised the woman's flesh rises into the air. No signs of life exist in the mummified shell. No longer can Inanna's magic hold to the shell. Now only a true necromancer could ever revive Lior's body. "Are you okay?" Biden asks, coming around the side of the house to find Anne standing over what looks like the scattered remains of a mummy, stolen from some Egyptian museum display. He is on edge, put off by the sight, but his desire as a firefighter to help people in trouble pushes him to check on the woman's well-being and get her away from the spreading flames. Inanna looks over at the man and smiles, baring her elongated fangs. The firefighter jumps back, startled. Seizing upon his fear, Inanna lunges and sinks her teeth deeply into the muscular tissue of the man's neck. Metallic-tasting warmth fills her mouth, and she turns her head to spit, holding the man in her arms in a sickening embrace as his body spasms and bleeds out. She tosses Biden into the burning home along with the remains of Lior. "You served me well," Inanna says, paying her respects to the body that saved her on more than one occasion. "But I cannot have your body discovered so soon after my most recent confrontation with the police." Walking around the home to the street, Inanna is greeted by two more firefighters, who have extinguished Vaughn and Brad, and stand over the remains of the teens in horror. They hear Inanna's approach. They do not know what to make of the blood-covered woman. Already on edge after seeing two bodies burnt beyond recognition, the woman's smile shakes them to their core. "Are you all right, ma'am?" Reed asks, trembling with fear. Inanna laughs, wiping her mouth with the back of her hand. "Do you humans read from a script? The other one asked me the same thing before I killed him." "You killed Jimmy?" Reed whispers with horror. The firefighters move towards their vehicle in terror, but Inanna manipulates the flames to block their escape. "Do not fret. I require a ride back to my plane," Inanna smiles. The men have never before experienced such fear. Satan himself could not scare them worse. "Badare al controle,"